Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be having a little bit of a look at a new Garbodor, and I'll tell you what, Garbodor has a lot of luck in the Pokemon TCG. There are certain Pokemon that just get good cards, and Garbodor seems to be one of them. We had the one that blocked abilities, and then the one that came out slightly later, which did the same thing. The one from Guardians Rising that briefly became hands down the best Pokemon in the game. I don't know if you do, but I remember that regional in Seattle where it was 75% of top 32 and 75% of top 8. And then we had the one in Rebel Clash, which gets the poison on. We'll get to that one later. That's always quite good. And now we got a new one, and shockingly enough, this one looks pretty gosh darn good as well. Shout out to the lovely Antoine Boulet, who of course provides our translation here. So, what do we see? Well, 120 HP is lower than we'd like, quite frankly. It's not awesome, honestly. We'd rather have 130. Because there's so many Pokemon that hit 120, but given that the one from Guardians Rising had 120 and the one from Sword and Shield had 120, yeah, this one was always going to have 120. Similarly, the retreat cost of free is awkward. Air Balloon will reduce your retreat cost, but it won't make it free. And you don't get buff padding, which is kind of upsetting. And the weakness to fighting is not ideal, because that means it's sharing a weakness of all kinds of stuff like Vikavolt and Eternatus, and people are going to be wanting to hit that kind of stuff for weakness, so I'll be honest with you, on the face of it, we're not loving the basics. Now, it is Darkness type, which will hit Dragapult for weakness, but Dragapult has basically been entirely scared off by Eternatus, as will basically anything that would be weak to Darkness or is weak to Darkness. And being a Darkness Pokemon, I don't know. It means you can play it in an Eternatus deck, which demands that you only have Pokemon on your bench that are Darkness type. But honestly, the basics here are, to put it euphemistically, uninspiring. But that's about where it ends, because the first attack here is awesome. For 2 colourless energy, you do 30 damage for each Pokemon tool in your discard pile, and then you shuffle all of those Pokemon tools back into your deck. So, essentially, what we've got here is 2 things going on at once. Firstly, if you can get enough Pokemon tools in the discard, and really it just depends on how many you're playing, discarding to make that difficult, then brilliant. Lots and lots of damage. Secondly, you get to reuse Pokemon tools over and over again. We all know that there are really good Pokemon tools out there that end up falling off at the end of your turn. Gee whiz, wouldn't it be kind of awesome if we could use them over and over again? I mean, one of the ones that springs to mind right away for me is Giant Bomb. Giant Bomb is that lovely tool card that you attach to one of your Pokemon, and if it would take 180 or more damage, you put 10 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. But it falls off at the end of your turn, and that's kind of annoying. Wouldn't it be awesome if you could just reuse this over and over and over again? And the answer clearly is yes, obviously, blatantly it would. Well, great news, ladies and gentlemen. Great news. I mean, honestly, this actually makes me kind of excited for Lumberry and Citrus Berry. Citrus Berry, if you've got at least 3 damage counters on, you heal 30 damage and discard it. Lumberry, if you've got any special conditions, you heal them and discard it. They're not particularly amazing cards because the effects are situational and underwhelming. But when you're in a situation where you get to heal 30, but then you get to put it back in your deck and then reattach it every turn, so you're healing 30 over and over again with the same card, well, that's a whole heap different, ladies and gentlemen. That is a whole heap different. And now I'm getting kind of excited about this. I mean, they're the main ones that really fall off in the current meta, but you know what? That's perfectly okay. And honestly, well, I mean, there is Metal Core Barrier, but it reduces damage by 70, but it only really works when you've got, well, a metal Pokemon. It's cool, but it's for metal Pokemon. Now, in terms of the damage here, I mean, this really, really does remind me of Alolan Ninetales. And I got excited about Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales, for 0 energy, it's literally free, does 10 damage for each tool in your discard pile. Now, this does treble the amount of damage that Alolan Ninetales does. Although, in any Garbodor deck, why would you not play Alolan Ninetales as a zero energy attacker that hits weakness on ADP? Like, anytime you're playing a Garbodor deck, you're blatantly playing Alolan Ninetales. And I suppose we should very quickly shout out the Doublade here, that does 30 damage for each Pokemon tool that is attached to each Pokemon in play, yours and your opponent's. And I did just earlier today show you a Whimsicott that lets you discard as many tools in your Pokemon as you like, and does 10 damage base plus 40 for each one discarded. I think in a Garbodor deck, you are going to be better off using other ways to discard the tools, which will be faster than attaching them and discarding them, but certainly playing one or two Whimsicott, and bearing in mind Garbodor's colourless energy, so you could play this with Psychic. You could be hitting something like Mewtwo and Mew for weakness, so again, I'm not saying it becomes the focus of your deck, but having a really easy tech Psychic attacker, a really easy tech Metal attacker, and a really easy tech Fairy attacker, this could be the makings of a pretty good deck. Although, let's be clear, I think when it comes down to it, the best attacker of all of them is Garbodor. Although what would be cool here, of course, is you attach loads of tools, discard them with Whimsicott, then you attack with Garbodor and put them all back in, and then you get them back out and attach them with Whimsicott and, you know, discard them and all of that, and round we go. But I do think Garbodor is a cut above the other ones of these in terms of attackers, even if you're not hitting the best weakness. I mean, we might as well mention energy-wise. We can use Twin Energy, we can use Triple Acceleration Energy, we can use Welder, or literally any other kind of energy acceleration, because it's colorless energy. So energy-wise, I really don't think you should be worried at all here. The energy is fine. And the thing is, damage-wise, it's not exactly that rough. I mean, the worst you're ever gonna have is Eternatus V Max and things of that nature with 340. Well, 11 tools in a discard is 330. Add a Vitality Band, and let's face it, you're playing so many different tools that playing 4 Vitality Band really won't be an issue. 11 tools in a discard to get a one-hit KO on Eternatus V Max? Yes. And the thing to remember is that I know you have to keep shuffling them back into your deck, but as you go through the game, you're going to be playing your Pokemon, playing your energy. As you're shuffling your tools back into your deck over and over again, the proportion of cards in your deck that are tools will be going steadily up and up and up. So you're going to be drawing lots of tools, and you got stuff like Professor's Research, which will discard them, or Quick Ball, which will discard them, or Great Catcher, which will discard them. I mean, one of my favourite techs in decks like this is Duskull. It literally sits on the bench and lets you discard 3 cards from your hand. I mean, you can then search your deck for a Dusclops and evolve into it, but that's not really why I'm playing Duskull here. I'm playing Duskull here purely because I want the opportunity to just discard 3 cards from my hand. So I'm going to. So that would be kind of cool. And the thing is, right, I know discarding 11 tools sounds like a lot, but you got to remember that's to take 3 prizes. That's halfway to winning the game. So does it really matter? And the honest answer is I don't think it does. You can take a couple turns to pull this off, you're fine. You can 2-hit KO, you're fine. And then, of course, like I say, you've got those other 3 attackers which can hit Fairy weakness, Metal weakness, or Psychic weakness that are going to have your back in other matchups as well. I think this is awesome. Now, in terms of tools, I've mentioned the berries, they're kind of cool. I have also mentioned Giant Bomb. It falls off at the end of your turn, so you don't have to discard it. There are a bunch of others you can use. Don't use U-Turn Board, obviously, because when discarded from play, that goes back to your hand. That would be silly. But certainly Air Balloon to give some of your Pokemon free retreat would work out quite nicely. Lucky Egg, because when the Pokemon is attached, you get KO'd, you draw 2, you got 7 cards in your hand. So play 4 of them, so you can have them for the early game. Big Parasol to protect all of your Pokemon from any effective attacks other than damage. Seems like one that could be quite fun to play. I mean, Billowing Smoke. I know it's not a particularly amazing card, but Billowing Smoke, basically if your opponent would take a prize, instead of taking a prize it gets discarded. It's the kind of spiteful card you don't usually have room in your deck to play, but if you're playing a big tool-hungry deck, why not? And then if your opponent is, really desperate for it, brilliant, there you go. Play it, and it will work quite nicely. Certainly Big Charm to give you an extra 30 HP seems like something that would work really beautifully here. I mean, honestly, this is the kind of deck where the tools you play are really going to depend on what you're playing against. If you think your opponent is going to just get a KO, Big Charm will stop them. If you're going to be just shy of a KO, Vitality Band will get it. Although I think Vitality Band and Big Charm probably should be 4-ofs anyway. And I do think we've got a real good deck here. I don't even think you have to play it with the other Pokemon I've mentioned, although honestly I certainly would. Now, there is a second attack here, but we're not going to get terribly excited. Darkness, double colorless, 80 damage plus poison, no. Now, I'm not saying I don't want poison, but I'm saying I think playing 3 of this Garbodor and 1 of the ones from Rebel Clash, so essentially you poison your opponent's active every single turn, that I am loving. But I don't think we should really get excited about this second attack. It's not about the second attack. Honestly, if this didn't shuffle the tools back into your deck, it would be flat out broken. You could just make a ridiculous speed deck and be hitting 300 damage or more turn 2 or 3. The fact that it shuffles it into your deck does help, but the fact that you've got a bunch of other attackers hitting a bunch of other weaknesses, and the fact that this can do so much damage for a single energy attachment on a single prize Pokemon, I really do think makes this exciting. I'm a genuinely big fan of this Garbodor. I'm giving it 4 Wassies, and honestly, even as I say that, I think I'm being a little bit misery, and I think I should maybe up it a little bit, but I've said it now. I'm going to stick by it. Either way, I'm a big fan of this card, and I'd quite like to know if you are. I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know if you think I'm a little over the top, or whether this could be legit. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.